Welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Brief. We're very fortunate today to have Ryan Torresan, CMO of Peak Dental Services. Ryan, thanks so much for being here. Why don't you get us started by telling us a little bit about your background and what you're up to lately?
Sure. Great. Yeah. Thank you for having me, Chris. So my background actually starts off in Michigan. I'm in Florida currently, but so it goes like this. Went to Wayne State University, which is a college in Detroit, Michigan, back in the 90s. Went into marketing and advertising, got the degree, and thought I'd work in automotive the rest of my life, being from Michigan and everything. And I did that for a little bit. Actually worked at General Motors, OnStar, and a couple ad agencies, which were big in the Metro Detroit area, and always on the research and analytics side. And I didn't think that I was going to do that very long, but I stayed in it probably for the first 8 to 10 years of the career. And I got a job over at a place called Entertainment Publications, which was a big coupon fundraising book. And none of this has anything to do with dental just yet. But those guys were great because they needed research analytics help. And so my two bosses there basically said, hey, if you're willing to come in and teach us that, we'll actually teach you what most people would say is traditional marketing, the strategy, the value prop at the time, websites, email, that type of stuff. And lo and behold, I was there for a couple of years and got a random phone call from a headhunter who said this place called Great Expressions Dental Center is looking for a marketing director, I believe. Never heard anything about dental. Initially, I was kind of like, I don't really know if I want to go market a dentist's office, but thank you for the phone call. They told me the salary was north of six figures at the time, which is I'm like, great, I'll take that phone call. Went, interviewed, and it had a lot to do with what I was doing at entertainment at the time because I had learned how to do PR and the strategy and the value propping. And CEO there, Rich Beckman, gave me really my first crack at it in dental and really my first crack at running a marketing department. He gave me the rope to do it, allowed me to build it and grow, and was there for 5 years, and then went to a couple different dental groups since then. And 15 years later, I'm still in dental, doing the marketing over at Peak Dental Services now. And so I think it's been a blessing in disguise. It's just not anything I ever thought I would actually get into.
I love it. That's a great story, and I mean, and you definitely worked at some great agencies, J. Walter Thompson, which now is rolled up into the, I guess, VML world, if I'm putting the acronym soup together right. That's fascinating. And so, so you're at Peak Dental now. Tell us how Peak started in Minnesota, but then migrated to Colorado.
Yeah, so it's before me, and I have nothing to do with it. But what it was AJ Peak, who was the CEO of Peak Dental Services. He founded this organization with his father, who was the dentist, and they were from Minnesota. And really what the story was is, hey, AJ essentially graduated business school, kind of, cut his teeth at a couple different places, went to his dad and said, hey, I think we should start this thing called a dental group. He had moved out to Colorado and said, hey, I think Colorado's a great place to do it. And that's eventually how Peak ends up in Colorado. And then the name of the company obviously is named after AJ and his father. And it's perfect because you're in Colorado, you got mountains, you're able to play that aspect up from a marketing, branding standpoint. And so they put it in Colorado, and it's gone from Colorado to Texas, about 60 or so offices. Really successful, north of $100 million, but that's how it goes from Minnesota over to Colorado.
Got it. So Peak is what? It's I guess the term is a DSO, right? And for the listeners that don't know what that is, tell us what that is and what makes Peak special.
Yeah, so what it is, they're called dental support organizations. That's what a DSO stands for. Sometimes you'll hear dental service organization. They kind of change that every couple of years. But really what it is think of it like almost like a property management organization. So business folks like myself, we support a bunch of dental offices. That could be, when I was at Great Expressions, that was 300. At Peak, like I said, we're a little bit north of 60. But business folks like myself, I handle all the marketing for them. There's an IT person, there's an HR department, there's a recruiting. And really what the value proposition is to the dentist is, come work for Peak Dental Services. We handle all that business stuff for you so you don't have to. And you can just focus on your clinical care You're still running the dental office. You're in charge of everything clinically, but we just handle all that other stuff, which probably is cumbersome, probably extends your day quite a bit, maybe stuff that's not in your sweet spot. Maybe you're not very effective at it. And it's a win-win on both sides, right? So as a business, we can make the organization more effective. As a dentist, they can focus on clinical and get done what they have to do. And the end outcome, the best part is for the patient, because the patient's actually getting the care that they need, and it's more affordable because of these larger organizations, because you get the economies of scale and the support and all that stuff. So, when I always, let's say it's been 15 years in this, I can honestly say, like, it is definitely really positive outcome for the patient.
Nice, nice. The as a we all go to the or should, most of us do go to the dentist. What's the process from your perspective? What's the process in picking a dentist? What's the average consumer? How's they get there?
Well, it depends, of course, if you have insurance or if you don't have insurance.
Right.
If we're being honest, I mean, most people are going to pick a dentist based on how close is it to my house. I went to Google, what were the reviews on it? That's kind of the initial one. And look, from a consumer standpoint, it's going to be, if I have insurance, do you take my insurance? Can you get me in for an appointment when I want to get in?
Yep.
How convenient it is, because dental is more of a commodity now than it ever has been, like, versus when I first started. And if you don't have insurance, like most people, right? Like, hey, I want to get the dental care. Same thing. Can you get me in? And is it affordable? So kind of the phrase that I say, no matter which side you fall on, is it's at your convenience, on your budget, and with dental professionals you can trust.
Mhm.
If you can remember those three aspects, that's really what the consumer is looking for. If you make it tough on the consumer to interact with you, they're going to have a much harder time, right? So if I call and you don't answer the phone, I call and you say you can't see me for 6 months, you're going to struggle getting that consumer into the door for you.
Yeah. Um, of the 60 practices you work with, I noticed that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I noticed that they all maintain their brand. They maintain their kind of whatever they, whatever, whether it's their name or a practice name. And I imagine they like that a lot because it gives them the individuality and a sense of control over their business. Um, but do you, within the 60 plus that you work with, are there any that are uh, focused on children or pediatric dentistry versus geriatric dentistry, or perhaps I don't know the right term. You help me out with this, but the
Yeah.
I guess dentures and other kind of more complicated processes. Are there specialty groups within the collection you service?
Yes, for Peak Dental Services. So you're correct, which is we call it like neighborhood brand. They get to keep their brand in that organization. Some other DSOs do it differently, where it's all commonly branded.
Yeah.
There's pros and cons to that. But for Peak, it's you stay with your neighborhood brand. Again, you're trying to usually win about a 10-mile radius around the office to be known, make sure patients are aware of you, etc. And within our footprint, yeah, so we would say it's general dentistry, which most people just know, hey, go to the dentist, I get my teeth clean, they
Yep.
check, make sure everything's looking good. There's orthodontics, which is going to be like your Invisalign and your braces, that type of world. And then specialty that maybe some people have heard of it or some they haven't. It's going to get into periodontics, endodontics. We have oral surgeons within the group and a couple others. So basically what it is Peak can provide all types of care for your dental need. And really the key is we want to be your dental home for everybody. So whether you're a child or you're a senior citizen or you're middle aged like me, you can come in and we can take care of you. And the good news is within our network is, hey, if something was discovered, we can make sure we get you in touch with somebody within our network. And those doctors feel really comfortable because they know they're clinically on the same page. They've referred to each other. They can treat the case, back and forth. So again, when I made the statement earlier, like the end outcome for the patient's actually really good. You're staying within the network, you're seeing specialists who are really good at what they do, and you're seeing the general dentist who can move you along in your path in life. Again, whether you're a child, a parent, a single person, or you're 80 years old and you just need to get the old teeth checked.
Yeah. Got it. Going back in time, thinking about early on in your career where you went from more analytics focused to thinking and you being trained in the broader marketing approaches. You mentioned you were with the entertainment couponing company. Uh, Tough category in a way, right? It's a um, uh, certainly something that I remember being a part of fundraising and if I remember correctly, the my experience with the kind of product was in the fundraising realm where you'd buy a for X amount you could buy a book of coupons that had a
Mhm.
value X 10x or whatever and and then I can never remember where I put it when I was getting ready to go get a cheeseburger, but what were some of the lessons you learned from that very interesting business?
It's a great question. So coming over, like I said, I was mainly in the research and analytics side. And so what I figured out really early on, really at the first job, which was J. Walter Thompson, is you get in these room with marketing folks, and a lot of people talk ideas and theories and brand, but they weren't at the time. They really weren't basing on data. It was less about the consumer. It was more about their own thoughts and maybe their training as to why something would resonate. So when I get over to entertainment, so I worked with two gentlemen, Craig and Ted, who were my bosses, and it was a great space to be in terms of the value prop because the economy was down. It was like 2008 ish.
Mm,
So people were looking to save money. Schools were looking to fundraise. But for me, the key really was how could we take analytics and make decisions to shape the marketing strategy going forward? And I remember at the time, one of the things we created, which was really like universal, like big deal at the time, and it was a big splash. But you look at it now, and you're kind of like, whatever. It was we created a dashboard by market because we would go into different cities, like Vancouver versus Boston versus Orlando versus Detroit. They all had their coupon book specific to like the local neighborhoods. But basically, what we did is we created a dashboard that said, "Hey, look, here's the amount of whatever food merchants, the auto shop merchants. These are the ones that rank really high on the consumer wish list.
mm,
Now let's plot out, and let me tell you the zip codes to go into to get those." And then I could layer that with the schools and say, if you're going to go and try to get a school to fundraise on this, most likely those parents are living around the school. They're going to want these categories around that school. So we were able to take the research and analytics and kind of pivot it there to be able to make some pretty smart decisions. And then what I learned, I didn't know anything about a boardroom setting. I didn't know anything about presentations and stuff. And they gave me the crack at it and they said, great, come in and present this. It's, what's going over really well. The CEO wants to see it. I'm sure I said some foolish things or whatever in the room at the time. But I really started to learn the value of what was EBITDA. Why should a marketer think this way versus just let's create the new campaign? So it was more about the impact to the business is what I really started to understand as a marketer and how we should be making decisions. Yes, creatively. Yes, so it resonates with the consumer. But at the end of the day, we're a business and we want to make sure that this business is thriving because people are working here. We're a part of the community. And if we can make the business really move in the right direction, it's a positive thing for everybody.
right. Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like you're a fairly early adopter of using big data to inform marketing. That's awesome. I love that. Um, the so fast forward to the dental realm. Um, you mentioned that the big three reasons that most people pick a practice. Um, do you do you do you do retail positioning, like real estate analysis for where to have your practice to figure out that 10-mile radius, or are the practices you work with kind of already existing and you're helping them accelerate their business or lower their back office load?
Yeah, so it's a good one. So for us, we buy the practices they're established. We're not necessarily doing what they call de novos, which is build a brand new one.
Okay.
So it's more of if we were to acquire a practice, hey, great, my job really is go in there, get a peek under the hood, see what they got going on from a marketing standpoint. And understanding, nowadays marketers really have to understand the top of funnel all the way to the bottom of funnel. And the reason why that's really important in healthcare is most marketers, if you and I were talking 10 years ago, Chris, we'd be talking about, great, how many people did you get scheduled and what's that cost per lead? Maybe a little bit about impressions and clicks in there too. Nowadays, listen, I haven't been in a boardroom in 5 years that impressions and clicks have come up. I'm not saying that they're not important for marketers in the trenches. It's
Yep.
important. But in the boardroom setting, they're going to say, great, how much did we spend? Are we in the benchmark of the industry or the geography that we're in? Are we doing above or below that? And how many patients came through because of that? And what I'm really explaining is the importance of what I kind of call MOPS, right? Marketing operations together and understanding that full funnel view. So when people ask the question of like, how can I help a dental practice? I want to understand their funnel all the way through. So it does me no good to have a great schedule rate and a great cost per lead if those patients are not showing up. And at the same time, if the patients maybe aren't showing up, maybe I'm targeting the wrong people. Or it could be maybe the doctor's schedule is not very convenient for people. And he's only open until 3 o'clock on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And he does one late day on Monday and he's closed the rest of the week. Well, most people probably come into the dentist after work, ideally, so they don't have to take the day off. So now you start getting into okay, how do we start to pivot? How do we start to adjust some things? So that again, it's convenience for the consumer. We're all carrying smartphones in our back pocket. We can Google anything, look at it. And the reality is if I call and the dentist says, I can't get you in for 6 months, great. I might take the appointment. I hang up and I call the next dentist or the next one, or I just schedule online. And whoever can get me in when it's free, convenient for my schedule, that's where I go. And that's really where things have shifted, and like things like AI and stuff are really starting to be really helpful in the industry.
I like it. So, you brought up AI. I'll tie a couple things together. Do you guys use chatbots or any AI tools from a customer experience perspective or an in practice perspective?
Yeah, so the industry, like everybody's trying to figure out AI right now. So there's some really cool tools in the industry. There's some AI that can help the doctors clinically to assess like X-rays and get a better read on some stuff. That's obviously not me because I'm not clinical. From a marketing standpoint, so I think that there's two sides to it. One is like I kind of mentioned a couple times in our interview, make sure it's convenient for the consumer.
Yeah.
I still believe the consumer generally, when they're calling, wants to talk to a human. And so we have a call center, and we've partnered with some really good call center vendors over the years, like Reach is one of them. They do a great job in dental. And the key there is they understand the schedules and how the office is working. They can communicate with that patient or the consumer really well and make that scheduling as easy as possible for them. And then if there is an issue, they can kind of work around that. So it's not AI related, but there's AI technology within the call center world that maybe listens to those phone calls and can really tell you if that person that called was truly a new patient opportunity versus existing. And did we get them booked or not? And if not, what was the reason for that? And so places like Reach or even our own call center is using technology where Chris can call in, boom, 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 we do the appointment, wrapped up. As soon as we hang up, we know within about 30 seconds or less what the story was on the phone call with Chris.
That's great.
The other aspect of it is, you're always struggling with things of like missed call rates in the healthcare space. You call a dental office, I'm sure this has happened to many people out there. You call and they don't answer. Maybe it's lunchtime, maybe it's after hours or whatever. So I've worked with companies like a Pure Logic out there where they help us do some of this tracking and stuff that I just mentioned. But then what they do is if Chris calls in, it's a missed phone call, he instantly gets a text message. You think it's a human that you're communicating with. It has that knowledge base of everything you'd want to know about. We're in the Target Plaza. Here's our hours. We take these insurances. But again, making it easy for the consumer. Hey, Chris, sorry that I missed your call. This is Ryan from Dr. Jones's office. How can I help you? You can communicate back and forth, ask whatever questions, but all of a sudden if you're like, hey, I wanted to get in on Thursday, cool. Let's just go ahead. Let me send you a link, Chris, right now. I have Thursday at 2 o'clock open for you. Click this link. Let's get you scheduled. So again, making it easier for the consumer, making it better for the practice so that their schedules are getting full. The doctor's treating the community the way that he or she should. And again, the business is being successful as a whole.
I love it. Um, you mentioned search or SEO, in Google in particular, which obviously is has the lion's share of search. Do you also work with and the practices you acquire? Do you do the business listings? Because it's interesting how how many people rely on that for navigation to get there, especially for the first time, or even in decision making, like how close is this to me? Do you do business listings as part of that as well?
Yes, absolutely. So in this healthcare dental space, if you will, most of them a lot of them have the problem. We kind of talked about like missed calls or a lost lead before, and we walked through that. The other part of this game is how do you find me? Because if you go and you just leave your house and you drive around your community today, and as you're going to pick up groceries or filling up the gas tank, you probably don't realize how many dentists you actually pass on the way. And you're like, I'm not going very far. It's just the closest grocery store to the house or the gas station on the way or the movie theater. So being able to do the listings or the paid search and the SEO is absolutely crucial. What most people would say is digital marketing is probably the backbone of most of the DSO's marketing strategy or individual dental offices that you see out there. And that just comes down to how efficient are you? And are you making sure that you're being found? And as the world's starting to shift in the AI world, look, I don't search on Google as much as I used to because I use ChatGPT or Gemini. The younger generation definitely does that.
Hmm.
The younger kids are doing it on Snapchat and other stuff. So content's become really super important all of a sudden. Even though we said that 10 years ago, it's even way more important now because you can't go to a ChatGPT and say, I'm going to give you $20,000 for the month, make sure I come up in all the searches.
Yep.
You can do that with Google. So now you have a balance, right? Google's still pretty dominant, but we want to make sure we're being found in the other areas, or like you said, online listings
Yep.
or the SEO. All of it's still exceptionally important. At the end of the day, what it comes down to is if Chris is searching for a dental office in his zip code or however he's doing the search, whether it be ChatGPT or Google, I want to make sure I'm popping up in the search. And ideally, he bumps into our social media at some point too.
Yeah. Yeah, we support clients in doing GEO or AEO readiness. It's essential these days because the consumers it's amazing how quick it's happened, right? I mean, the pace of change around going from a passive search channel where it's either organic or paid listing, but it's a list. It's a passive list to, I remember using it, and I actually spoke at a conference, a digital marketing for insurance companies conference, and I literally did a ChatGPT search and said, I'm X years old. I have, two dependents. I have 4 cars. This is my zip code. I'm looking for a homeowner's policy, an auto policy for 4 cars. I need a boat policy. I want an umbrella policy. What would be the best carrier? And it literally came back and said, here's the 3 that fit your criteria best. However, if you answer the following questions, I can narrow it down to the single best. I
Yep.
mean, so to your point, those companies, especially at this point, because this is almost a year ago now, those companies were not actively supporting the context there, and now today, they need to, and are in many cases, and so what you put in, what you used to put in keywords on your website, now it's about that findable context for the large language models, and making sure it's super easy for them to add up and answer actively with the right information. So with distinction, not just generic context, right? Because you don't want to sell the category, go to the dentist. You want to sell your practice, your neighborhood brand. So speaking of the neighborhood brand, those neighborhood brands retain their name. Does it also then, is it somehow noted as a Peak Dental company?
No, to the consumer, nobody really knows what Peak Dental Services is.
Got it.
And we don't really want them to, not that we're hiding anything.
Right. Sure.
But at the end of the day, the relationship is with that doctor or that hygienist in the office. They're a part of the community or they're not. Like, how active is the office out there?
Right.
So underneath our strategy and our umbrella of neighborhood practices, if you will, we want the neighborhood to know Dr. Smith and he's in this zip code and he supports the T-ball team, and I can Google and find him.
Yep.
So from our vantage point, no, like ideally a consumer should really never like know who we are, which means we're probably doing our job right in terms of supporting the offices.
Yeah.
If they probably know who Peak Dental Services are, it's probably because maybe they're not happy with an office and maybe they've dug a little bit. So it's not hidden or anything.
Right.
But no, at the end of the day, my perfect world is a consumer has a great outcome at the dentist office. They really like him or her, who they're interacting with. They're booking their next appointment. They're bringing their family through. They're going home. They're being healthy. They're getting the lifestyle that they want out of it. And at the end of the day, people like me or Peak Dental Services, they don't really know who we are.
Yeah. No, that's perfect. Yeah. It's kind of the intel inside without having to say we're intel. I
Yeah.
like it. Yeah. That's great. Um, on your journey, are there any examples or any people that were mentors to you that gave you really good advice or really bad advice?
Yeah, that's always a good one. So I've kind of mentioned a couple people when I was kind of going along here. So like I said, when I went to entertainment publications, there was a gentleman, Craig Gustafson, who was technically I think the VP of marketing, and I reported into the director, who was Ted Spears. And there's another gentleman, Mike Stolarski, who was a VP, kind of like in the more of the call center inside sales group. All three of them mentored me in a different way, and they gave me the experience that I don't know if I would have maybe got elsewhere at that age. And so, Ted, it wasn't necessarily a direct quote or anything like that, but he really showed me the importance of value propping of a business and stuff. Cause he, prior to joining, he did it for the Detroit Red Wings for 10, 15 years.
Nice.
Craig was really good with the numbers and understanding the business impact and how to read a P&L. I honestly never really knew what a P&L really was, never saw one. I heard about it, kind of, but never really got into it. And, Craig really broke that down for me. And then Mike Stolarski really showed me, hey, look, when you're trying to do a sale, which is what we're doing, here's how you objection handle. Here's how you listen to the consumer. Here's how you refine some things as you go along. So those guys were all great with showing me what I would say is more the traditional side of marketing, which really honestly, because of that, gave me great exposure and allowed me to do what I'm doing in dental today. And then I think when I got into dental, again, some good mentors there. Rich Beckman, who was the CEO that gave me my first crack at it, really showed me the value of, who cares if you're young or old? You can either do the job or you can't. And, I'm going to give you the rope to do that. And you should extend that same courtesy to others as you're developing your career and stuff.
Nice.
And, I also learned along the way, it's not always about the money, right? Like people are going to remember you for how you help them out or how you give back. And I think if you do good work and you treat people generally the right way, sometimes in business, we have some tough decisions, but if you do it the right way, eventually the money and the career kind of follows. You still have to work hard at it. But like a gentleman like yourself who said, hey, I'm doing this podcast. Would you like to be on it? That's because of you. And I got to be thankful for that. So those are some of the things that I've learned along the ways because, and if I can help out others, I like to do the same.
Nice. Nice. I like it. Turning to, we've talked a lot about Peak. Is there anything coming up for the organization that you want to make sure our listeners hear or understand about what's going on at Peak or that it's right around the corner that you share?
Yeah, I think, look, Peak's got some really cool stuff going on right now. We're expanding, we're growing with more offices. I suspect we'll enter into a new market pretty soon. And look, from a marketing standpoint, we have a new CEO, Michael Amerstein, great guy. He's really doing a good job with the business and everything. But he's given us the leeway saying, hey, you know what? Let's update these websites. Let's kind of put a different little approach out there and focus on the culture and stuff like that to move the organization in the right direction. So around the corner for us in the next 3-4 months is brand new websites for everybody. Building up kind of what you and I were talking about a little bit more earlier in the call, which is the Chat GPTs, the Geminis, figuring out that type of stuff into the landscape as well. And I think with Peak Dental Services, they're investing a lot more in the clinical side. In terms of technology and stuff. And the reason why I always like to mention that even again, I'm not a clinician, I have nothing to do with that. But I think it's important that people know you come to a Peak Dental Services office you're getting the cream of the crop dentists that are working on you. You're getting the best hygienists because they're investing in technology. They're always looking to do it better. And so, just like if I were to take my daughter somewhere, I want to make sure that's a good doctor and that's a good hygienist I'm going to.
Yeah. That's great. So, this has been great, Ryan. Thank you for all you've shared. Uh, Hollywood just called and they're going to do a biopic on you. What's the name of the film, or who's going to play you, or what's the plot or theme?
That's a good one. My all-time favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life.
Nice.
And I like it for a variety of different reasons. So I'd like to think it's something like that because I've had some ups and downs throughout life. And I guess if anybody could play me, I would take Jimmy Stewart if I could bring him back. Not sure if people would totally agree with that or not. But for me, like, yeah, I would call it like it's a Wonderful Life, and I think it's just more of the story is just more of, hey, give it back, and it'll come back to you in the end.
I like it. I like it. That sounds like something I'd want to see. Ryan, for those that want to reach out and connect with you, what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, two ways. You can always find me on LinkedIn. So it's Ryan Torresan. The last name's somewhat unique. There's not too many of us out there. Or you can just do ryantorresan@gmail.com. Email into me any questions, anything like that. Happy to connect.
Ryan, thank you so much for being on Beyond the Brief. And with that, we'll wrap up another episode. Until next time, thanks everybody for listening in.
Great. Thank you, Chris.